Ken, give me a little bit more on who Kash Patel is and his qualifications to be in this position.
I've called him the personification of MAGA rage at the FBI and the Justice Department. As you saw there, one thing that is a theme that sort of runs through a lot of his commentary is grievance, a real sense of grievance at a lot of different institutions, but particularly the FBI and the Justice Department. Look, he's a person who spent a lot of years after law school as a public defender, and then he spent 3 years working for the Justice Department's National Security Division. And in that time, he later said that he was the lead prosecutor going after the Benghazi terrorists, which is manifestly untrue. That's been debunked. And he had sort of mid-level jobs in the Trump administration of the Defense Department and in the intelligence community. Nothing that would suggest he is qualified to run one of the most important intelligence agencies and the most important law enforcement agency in the country. And he's a person who has threatened, as you saw there, to dismantle the FBI and to use it to pursue Donald Trump's aims of prosecuting his political enemies and investigating his political enemies. And we should take that very seriously. The FBI is an extremely powerful law enforcement and intelligence organization with a lot of tools at its disposal to conduct surveillance that Americans will never see. Now, there are safeguards in place to prevent those tools from being abused, but we've seen in the past those safeguards don't always hold. So this is a very serious moment for American democracy, Katie.
Yeah, I want to get to those safeguards in a moment, but first I want to get a little bit more about the origin story of Kash Patel. And Elena, you've done a lot of deep reporting on him. Can you help me understand what shaped him into, as you describe it, the man who would do anything for Donald Trump?
I think it starts, Katie, and Ken mentioned grievance as being a theme that runs through a lot of his career, and I think that's absolutely right. To me, what I found to be a formative moment for him in my reporting was when he was a federal defender at the Miami Public Defender's Office and was berated by a federal judge in Houston for showing up without a tie to court. Certainly the judge's outburst was disproportionate to the quote-unquote crime, but that moment, I think, coupled with the fact that when the Washington Post published a report about that, this was back in 2016, the Department of Justice would not go on the record defending Patel, despite doing so in private. And so for Kash Patel, that to him read as a manifestation of the system being unwilling to back up the people at in the rank and file. And so that, I think, was sort of the germ that then escalated as he went on to work for Devin Nunes, as you mentioned, gets into the National Security Council. And this idea that, you know, his grievance against the system, he's steadily accruing the power he would need to actually exact the revenge on the people who he feels has wronged him.
Christopher, did you see anything of this when you were working with him at the FBI?
So this is going to surprise a lot of people. No.
Okay.
When Kash was actually working a number of East Africa terrorism cases closely with the FBI and the interagency, the intelligence community and special operations community, and pieces of Benghazi, I was directly involved in all of that. He was actually a very responsible, motivated attorney who built good partnerships with FBI agents, with task force officers, and across the interagency. So he's described himself as the legal liaison to JSOC. That was not an official position that he had, but he built strong partnerships there and wound up working pretty routinely in it's called JIATF-NCR, Joint Interagency Task Force, which is JSOC in Washington, D.C. So he was effective. If that Kash Patel showed up for Senate confirmation or for day one at the FBI, he would be well received. It's the actor in this political theater.
So do you recognize this guy?
No, not at all. And it's disappointing.
So I wonder, given your experience with him, Christopher, and what we've seen of him since he left the FBI and started working at the House Permanent Select Committee and then in the National Security Council and then being in the wilds of the public sector since Donald Trump left office. Elena, what has been motivating him? Is this Is this a money move for him? Because as you've outlined in your, frankly, incredible reporting and piece on Kash Patel, this guy's got, books. We have some screen grabs. He's got a children's book included talking about, everyone that's trying to go after Donald Trump, and they went after the king, called something like that. He's got Kash wine. He sells wine. He has a scarf, Fight with Kash the Punisher, reversible scarf, Take a Lap Rhino tank tops, Justice for All, January 6th prisoners tees, Kash Crew, golf polos. I mean, he's like Donald Trump in the way that he's branding himself and trying to make money off his current position in the MAGA world. So is it that he's a true believer, animated by going after what he sees as political enemies in the deep state, or is this a money-making proposition for him?
I would say that the money making, the merch selling and whatnot kind of came by necessity when the first Trump administration came to an end, and he was really struggling to kind of find the offers that he felt he deserved. He was, of course, coming off as having been chief of staff to the acting secretary of defense. I had sources who told me that he would regularly complain that anyone else in his position would immediately receive an offer from, say, Oracle or Boeing, and he was not getting anything like that. So for him, I think the commodification of his association with Donald Trump just became a really natural way to make money and kind of grab from various pots, you could say, when he didn't have necessarily a regular salary, steady job. And so I think his elevation to directorship of the FBI, if it happens, would, would really signal that he is finally kind of tabling those things and then actually making good on the promises he made in the first Trump administration.
Elena, one more to you. I want to ask about the loyalty question, because when you describe him as somebody who would do anything for Donald Trump, what is the evidence of that? What does that mean, to do anything for Donald Trump? Was it within the bounds of the law or outside of it?
I mean, I can't predict that specifically, Katie, but what I will say is that when there is a staffer who is not motivated in the way that, say, someone like Stephen Miller is, which is to say by a pretty coherent ideology. When you think about Stephen Miller, you think about his specific views on immigration policy. Kash Patel, it's not the same. This is not somebody who is animated by a particular worldview when it comes to national security or American intelligence. This is somebody who has really tethered himself to Donald Trump, the man, which is to say that whatever Donald Trump wakes up tomorrow and wants Kash Patel to do, he may well do. I had one former senior administration official say to me in the course of reporting my story on him a couple of months ago that Donald Trump knows that Kash Patel is the kind of man that you say to, I'm not telling you to break into the DNC, but wouldn't it be great if something like that could happen?
Lisa, expand on that.
Well, listening to Elena and Chris talk, I think you can sort of figure out why those offers from Boeing and Oracle weren't forthcoming, because as much as he would have been and was a partner to the FBI during the period of time where Chris knew him, he went from being that partner to being a person under investigation by the FBI. In November of 2022, Kash Patel was forced to testify in the classified documents investigation because initially he took the Fifth Amendment. Kash Patel refused to testify until the Department of Justice gave him what's called use immunity, meaning nothing that he said in that grand jury testimony could be used against him to prosecute him. That is a person whose loyalty is so secure to Donald Trump that until he was offered that immunity, he would not say a word about that involvement. And what we know about that involvement, Katie, is he is a person who said Donald Trump declassified everything. But we also have an FBI 302 document, that's an interview memo from the FBI, from an unknown person saying that a person who seems to be Kash Patel was the only person who potentially would testify that that actually happened.